Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's symposium. I would like now to give the floor to the director of UNOOSA, Aarti Holla-Maini, and then we will follow on. Please, good morning, Aarti, and it's a pleasure to welcome you.
Good morning. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Yep, I think I'm not on mute. Excellent.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Excellencies, guests, esteemed colleagues and friends. I'm really delighted to join you today. A profound thank you to the government of Portugal and the entire team at the Portuguese Space Agency for the leadership that they've provided, and to all the stakeholders who are contributing to the space track of the Summit of the Future. The role that COPUS has to play in maintaining and contributing to the peaceful uses of outer space is more important now than it has ever been before. And it's these joint efforts like this that will ensure that we get there. In the depths of the Secretary General's policy brief number 7 for all humanity, the future of outer space governance, we find our North Star. It reminds us of the urgent need for a globally inclusive and cooperative governance framework, safeguarding outer space as a common good for humanity. For us, we see the Summit of the Future as a beacon of hope, a beacon that invites us to commit to a unified vision for outer space, that offers us the opportunity to put down a marker in the pact for the future of our shared commitment to advance on the various areas that can and should be addressed by COPUS as the prime multilateral forum with the mandate and the expertise and the experience in driving progress on critical space issues. As we navigate this critical juncture in the history of space exploration, UNOOSA's role also becomes ever more crucial. With the increasing number of stakeholders and satellites, the complexity of space governance is spiraling. With the increasing number of disasters worldwide and their diverse and often devastating consequences for the vulnerable people of the world, our role as custodian of space for the SDGs becomes pivotal. The United Nations, particularly through COPUS, provides the indispensable platform for supporting and advancing these discussions. It's here within the UN's consensus-driven mechanism that the rules of orbit must be developed and refined in cooperation with all spacefaring and non-spacefaring nations. The proliferation of space debris, especially in low Earth orbit, LEO, underscores the immediacy of our mission. This challenge, growing with each new satellite that is launched, demands our prompt and united action. It's not like the slow-burning crisis of climate change. Here, the escalation of orbital debris could very swiftly outpace our capacity for remediation. We stand really at a watershed moment for outer space governance. The UN is uniquely positioned to shepherd this global endeavor, especially as we confront the burgeoning challenges posed by an ever-crowded orbit. Through consensus and cooperation, exemplified by COPUS, we can forge the comprehensive agreements that we need to ensure the long-term sustainability of outer space activities. I'd also emphasize that time is of the essence, and if COPUS doesn't step up, we can be sure that other organizations will gladly step in to fill the void of inaction, and that would not be right. So as we deliberate on the future of space governance, I'd really call upon you, the member states, to allow us to be driven by a spirit of collaboration, innovation, and shared responsibility. The path forward is challenging, but it's filled with an unparalleled opportunity to ensure that outer space remains a realm of peace, of discovery, and shared human heritage. I want to close by thanking all of you for your continued dedication to this vital cause. I know we've been speaking to the member states about the Summit of the Future for months now, and we don't stop. We won't stop until we get there. But thank you for joining hands with us as we embark on this essential journey together. And it really is an essential journey. The committee, UNOOSA, and the world at large, when it comes to space, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment. It is time for us to step up and to do so together. I also want to extend my deepest gratitude to the government of Portugal once more for their unwavering commitment to the space track of the summit of the future. And I'm really confident that the leadership and the dedication that you have shown is going to serve us very well on our shared journey towards ensuring space sustainability. Thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you very much, Aarti, for your lovely words. And as you know, Portugal is actively committed to contribute to the outer space dialogue. We welcome you to the second Visual Symposium focusing on the policy aspects of the space traffic management, space debris removal, and space resources. The conclusions of this virtual symposium and the technical symposium from last November will feed into the final in-person event in Lisbon in May. As you might remember, we had a technical symposium last November on the three core issues. From all those sessions in November, it was clear that we are on the verge of a tremendous technological transformation, with the industry actively moving forward and at a speed that needs to be matched by regulation. One of the main conclusions highlighted in the different sessions was the importance of legal boundaries and the regulatory framework for space activities on Earth, in Earth's orbit, and celestial bodies. It was also stated on various occasions that a global effort is needed, and no one can act alone. These are some of the outcomes that reinforce the importance of the sessions that we start today. Through the debate during this week, we can all contribute to a fruitful discussion supporting the preparation of the conference in May and the Summit of the Future. We need to find global consensus on these issues to ensure that space data and services can play their rightful role in enabling the SDGs. From satellite communications to Earth observation to space science, they are all indispensable to achieving the 2030 agenda and saving and improving the planet and the lives on those on it. Right now, these applications are under threat. Without effective multilateral governance, the benefits of space might be lost for future generations and therefore for the SDGs. The United Nations must advance in outer space governance to ensure that this sector can continue to drive progress on sustainable development. This is the Secretary General's vision behind our common agenda, and we invite you to work with us towards a successful conference in Lisbon in next May to cement space potential for turbocharging the progress onto 2030 agenda. Finally, I would like to thank all the moderators, the rapporteurs and speakers for your time and contribution to this endeavor. We look forward to a constructive and fruitful discussions in the coming sessions to help us to build the future of space governance together. Just a short reminder, all of these sessions are being recorded, and for those who like to pose questions, you can do it so in the comments on YouTube. With this, I would like to give the floor to the moderator for our first session on regional and national approaches to space sustainability, Professor Stephen Freeland. Professor Stephen Freeland is Emeritus Professor of International Law at Western Sydney University and the Australian government representative at UN COPUS meetings, and in June 2021 was appointed by UN COPUS as Vice Chair for a 5-year working group on legal aspects of space resources activities. Thank you very much, Professor Stephen. It's a pleasure for me to introduce you, and I would now like to give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hugo. It's a pleasure to be here. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, welcome to this first session of this wonderful week of events co-organised by the Government of Portugal and the Portuguese Space Agency and the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. Let me also add my sincere thanks and congratulations to both the Government of Portugal and UNOOSA for putting on this symposium. This is, of course, a crucial issue. We all understand that the sustainability of space is really at the forefront of our needs if we are to continue to garner the benefits of space in a peaceful and cooperative way. We all understand that. We, of course, have wonderful initiatives. Of course, the 2019 guidelines on sustainability, long-term sustainability guidelines, many other pieces and instruments that have been created over recent years through the COPOS process, many initiatives by national governments and regional intergovernmental organisations, many discussions amongst civil society and academia. And I think there is general agreement around the world that the sustainability of space for the long term, for future generations, and in my country, Australia, our Indigenous people, the first astronomers in the world, think of future generations not in terms of one or perhaps two generations, but 7 generations forward. And so we really need to understand the imperatives of the sustainability of space. And I think that's a general agreement. What's not necessarily agreed is, what does it mean? What does it require? How can we implement this in the most efficient and cooperative way, in the most unified way? How do we understand that different countries will have different ways of interpreting their obligations, both legal, moral, and scientific, in the way that they talk about sustainability, in the way that they implement sustainability, in the way that they look at their own space ecosystem and direct it towards sustainable activities? So it's a 2-tier approach, at least. We need governments and therefore the non-governmental entities that are under their jurisdiction to understand and adhere the importance of sustainability. But we need also guidance from the cooperative nature of multilateralism to show us exactly what is the right approach, what is the most appropriate approach, what is the best approach that will allow us to move forward in a peaceful and sustainable way in space. And so this symposium is extremely important, and this first session of great interest, because what we will do is we will very quickly go around the globe and see what 5 major spacefaring nations are doing in terms of looking at that guidance that Aarti talked about at the multilateral level, looking at the need for global efforts that Hugo talked about, but then implementing and interpreting it to meet their own particular circumstances. So we have in this session 5 wonderful representatives from 5 separate space agencies. What we will do is I'll ask them briefly to give a short presentation about the initiatives in their own particular country. We'll then open the floor to any questions from the audience or discussion amongst the speakers. And then in the end, I'll ask each of our speakers for some last reflections briefly. So please, I encourage everybody to listen to the wisdom and the expertise of our panelists, and also to contribute with your own perceptions about how to move forward. So let us start. Our first speaker, a dear friend of mine, not only because we are from the same country, but we've known each other for many years. I'll call on Alex Sinetta. Alex is the Director of Space Regulation at the Australian Space Agency. She leads the regulation team in what is called the Office of the Space Regulator at the Australian Space Agency, works on civil issues, leads Australia's regulatory frameworks, both domestically and internationally, and of course also is part of and leads the Australian delegation at the COPOS meetings, and no doubt we'll all see Alex very soon in sunny Vienna. So Alex, could I ask you please to take the floor and introduce us to the initiatives in Australia. Thank you, Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll just share my slides. Can you see those? Great. Thank you. I'm going to provide a regulatory perspective on Australia's approach to space sustainability at the national and regional levels with linkages to the international level. So this includes environmental considerations, space debris mitigation, implementing the guidelines for the long-term sustainability of outer space activities, or LTS guidelines, and lunar activities. So the Australian Space Agency works at the intersection of the international and regional and the national. So I'll speak to various elements of these slides. If first we look at the red overlapping ovals, the agency is responsible for, among other things, leading international civil space engagement and administering space activities legislation through the Space Launches and Returns Act 2018, or the Act. This includes achieving outcomes which have a back and forth between the international and the national, each informing the other. Now, thinking about our national legislation, and you can see it named here, the Act, which establishes a system for the regulation of space activities carried on either from Australia or by Australian nationals outside Australia, and a system for the regulation of the launch of high-power rockets in Australia. The Act also implements certain of Australia's obligations under the UN space treaties. Considering a launch facility, and you can see a photo here of an Australian one, under the Act, the Minister may grant to a person a launch facility licence if the Ministry is satisfied, among other considerations, that all necessary environmental approvals under Australian law have been obtained. In relation to debris mitigation, and you see here the cover of the UN Space Debris Mitigation Guidelines, Australia's Act includes the requirement for a debris mitigation strategy for an Australian launch permit, which authorises launches from Australia, and an overseas payload permit, which authorises launch of an Australian space object overseas. Further requirements are set out in our general rules, which state that a debris mitigation strategy must be based on an internationally recognised guideline or standard for debris mitigation. And of course, the COPWAS Space Debris Mitigation Guidelines is one example of that. Identify the guideline or standard being used, describe any mitigation measures planned for orbital debris arising from the proposed launch, and include an orbital debris assessment. When it comes to implementing the LTS guidelines, and you can see here a copy which was signed by delegates, we implement the LTS guidelines in several ways. Through national legislation, which includes adopting, revising and amending national legislation, supervising national space activities, and launched space objects authorised under our legislation being included in a register on our website. The agency also engages in regional groups, for example, with the National Space Legislation Initiative, or NSLI, under the Asia Pacific Regional Space Forum, APRSAF, which aims to cooperatively enhance states' capacity to develop and implement national space laws in line with international norms. We also engage with the Australian space sector to understand their awareness, perspectives and experiences in activities related to Australia's implementation of the guidelines. In relation to lunar activities, and you can see here a picture of the rover, in October 2021, the Australian government announced an agreement with NASA for a small Australian-made Foundation Services rover to be included in a future mission. Opportunities to consider issues relating to sustainability, particularly in relation to lunar activities, include contributing to discussions in the Working Group on Legal Aspects of Space Resource Activities at the Legal Subcommittee, and there we sponsored a paper last year with Austria and the Netherlands. So this CRP provided relevant considerations for developing a set of initial recommended principles and included a survey of key themes in relation to the Outer Space Treaty, the Moon Agreement, the Artemis Accords and the Hague Building Blocks. These themes included environmental protection and sustainability. We're also a founding signatory to the Artemis Accords, which aim to establish a practical set of principles to guide space exploration and aim to increase the safety of operations, reduce uncertainty, and promote the sustainable and beneficial use of space. We also engage with the Lunar Policy Platform in the development of its lunar policy priorities for safe and sustainable lunar development, and you can see the cover of the report here. Finally, just to note that the Japanese Aerospace and Exploration Agency, JAXA, and the Australian Space Agency will co-host the 30th APR SAF in Perth, Australia this year, and the theme is collaborating to build a sustainable and responsible regional space sector. The 76th International Astronautical Congress will be hosted in Sydney next year, and the theme is Sustainable Space, Resilient Earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was a wonderful presentation, and can I just say, as someone who lives in Sydney, I encourage everybody to come to Sydney for next year's IAC. It will be an excellent event, wonderful theme, but also Sydney is a great city, so we would welcome you all. Our next speaker is a distinguished representative from ISRO, from India, Dr. Anil Kumar. Dr. Kumar, it's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Kumar has a wonderfully distinguished CV, but amongst other things, is Associate Director, ISRO Telemetry at the Tracking and Command Network, a Vice President at ISRO, and a member of the International Astronautical Federation and Chair of the IADC Coordination Committee. And his accomplishments and CV go for a long way. But Dr. Kumar, I hope you will forgive me for stopping there and passing the floor to you. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to your presentation regarding the initiatives in India. The floor is yours.
Okay, if it is not available, let me start. Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to Excellencies and distinguished and honorable delegates. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to present before this August audience India's efforts on sustainability. And my special thanks to UNOOSA and Portuguese Space Agency for providing me this platform. Indian space program are aimed to harness space technologies for societal benefit with the sustainability of space, outer space activity as a key guiding principle. And following the footsteps of 2020 reforms, Indian space policy was unveiled in 2023, which encourages greater participation of private sector to build a thriving space ecosystem. This Indian space policy mandates Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center in Space to function as a regulatory body for authorizing, promoting, and supervising space activities by all Indian entities. It also addresses the requirements for long-term space sustainability by mandating that all activities should be in accordance with the international guidelines and international obligations of India. As a responsible spacefaring nation, India is a party to all major international treaties and regulations. UN IADC recommended guidelines on space debris mitigation and internationally accepted best practices for long-term sustainability of outer space activities are followed by Indian space program. Compliance with the debris mitigation guidelines are assessed before the authorization for any space-related activities. In addition, the importance of heightened space situational awareness capabilities, collaborations, data sharing, investing in R&D are emphasized in the policy. Thus, the mandates of the space policy reaffirms the commitment of India to promote responsible, safe, and sustainable practices in space operations. There are 5 areas in which India is putting efforts. First is regulation, observational capabilities, analysis, mitigation strategies and executions, and awareness building. It may be noted that ISRO is a member of Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, IADC, IAA Space Debris Working Group, International Astronautical Federation, STM, Space Traffic Management Committee, ISO Working Group, which are all dealing with space debris and related issues. IS4OM, ISRO System for Safe and Sustainable Space Operations Management, was established in 2022 as an in-house system to safeguard Indian operational spacecraft and also to ensure sustainable space operations. To safeguard Indian space assets against collision threat, space object proximity analysis is carried out daily for all LEO and GEO satellites by ISRO. It is about 52 satellites are being screened every day. The alerts from the Combined Space Operations Center of US Space Command are also analyzed to identify the critical cross approaches. It may be noted that in 2023, we had done 22 collision avoidance maneuvers to safeguard our satellites. Cross approach analysis for the deep space missions, especially lunar missions, are also carried out regularly as an extension of practices for sustainable space operations in Earth beyond region. In the year 2023, Chandrayaan-2 orbiter was maneuvered twice to avoid cross approaches with existing lunar orbits like LRO, KPLO, and other orbiters. And also all our manual plans in the earthbound orbits as well as the lunar-bound orbits for Chandrayaan-3, including the final lunar escape burn, were screened for cross approaches. ISRO carries out pre-launch cross approach analysis for all its launches as a mandatory practice, known as launch collar process, LCOLA. The analysis is done for different liftoff timings within the given launch window to detect any cross approaches, critical cross approaches with the space objects in its descent, ascent, descent, and orbital phase. Yeah, next one. The analysis you can see here. Basically, our space debris mitigation follows the UN debris guidelines, including passivation of spent upper stages and passivation of satellites at the end of its life. And collision avoidance analysis, LCOLA, we can see that we had from 2011 onwards, there are many liftoffs were delayed to avoid any cross approach with the critical during its ascent phase or descent phase or the orbital phase. And also any launch vehicle mission liftoff, this screening is done for cross approach to the human space missions including ISS, CSS to ensure wider separation for additional safety considerations. In 2023, 3 launches were delayed, including Chandrayaan-3 liftoff delayed by 4 seconds to ensure collision-free ascent and orbital phases. We postponed PSLV C-55 liftoff by 1 minute to avoid congestion of the small satellites. which is in the large constellations. And regarding post-mission disposal, which is an essential part of the sustainability, we are carrying out all geosatellites to graveyard orbit at the end of its life, which is with 100% compliance with the international guidelines. And regarding the LEO satellites and LV orbital stages, launch vehicle orbital stages, to comply with the IRDC 25-year rule, we are trying to best efforts to make it within 25-year rule. And also, now we have, last year, we had done a controlled re-entry of megatropics at over an uninhabited region of Pacific Ocean, making post-mission disposal at the end of life a practice. We have done deorbiting of Cartosat-2 and Microsat-1, which both are decayed in the last year. Also, upper stages, PSLV and GSLV upper stages, we are making sure that their life is less than 25 years, and especially for PSLV, now we are deorbiting an orbit of about 350 kilometers so that the life is less than maybe 1 year. So such activities are started carrying out to make sure that long-term sustainability is a goal for Indian space programs. Example, at the end of its life, GSAT-12 was reorbited to a supersynchronous graveyard orbit. It underwent about 11 maneuvers and finally achieved orbit was about 400 kilometers with very low eccentricity above the geobelt, which is an excellent compliance with IRDC guidelines as the prescribed minimum perigee race requirement is about 300 kilometers only. Similarly, as another example, leveraging the restarting capability of PSLV upper stage, PSLV 356 PS4 was deorbited after injecting 3 customer satellites in 536 km to 300 km altitude. The rocket body, if it would have been in 536 km, would have gone for more than 20 years, but re-entered there last year after about within 1 year from 300 km. Next one. Yeah. So, space situational awareness is a key enabler for safe and sustainable operations, and observational capabilities are the cornerstone for effective SSA. We are building upon observational facilities like radars and optical telescopes. At present, we have an India's multi-object tracking radar that is Sriharikota is undergoing trial runs to improve its performance. Many outreach programs were planned to make space actors about the challenges posed by proliferation of space debris and the need to develop innovative solutions to tackle the challenges. We can see that we have conducted international workshop on SSA and STM in 2023 Jan, International Conference on Spacecraft Mission Operations in June 2023, and a 3-day student workshop of SSA and STM in October 2023. Regularly, we are interacting with the emerging space actors through InSpace to give them sustainability goals. We have planned an international meet on planetary defense in July 2024. Now, our future directions include deorbiting satellites on a fixed schedule, planning proper replacement well before end of life, life extension subject to PMD capability assessment, controlled re-entry wherever feasible, study on design for demise, and also legal and policy support. So, thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anil, for that comprehensive overview of the situation in India and all of the practical measures also that India is undertaking in the diversity of its missions. Thank you very much. I'd now like to move to another dear colleague from JAXA, Koichi Kikuchi, the Manager of International Relations Division and the International and Research Department at JAXA, who's responsible not only for space law matters, but also for International Relations Manager JAXA. So extremely busy. Thank you for joining us. We'll look forward very much to your presentation, and the floor is yours, Koichi.
Thank you, Sensei. Thank you for your kind introduction. And now I'd like to explain about space policy and law in Japan. In Japan, the basic space law was enacted in 2008. According to this law, the basic plan on space policy was formulated in 2009 first. This plan is revised every few years. The basic plan sets the goal of Japan's space policy. The latest plan provides the goals, as shown here. Under the basic plan, the implementation plan is formulated and revised annually. Other relevant laws are also enacted, as you can see here. In this slide, you can see the policy makes the law, and the law drives the policy in Japan. And then I'd like to explain about the rules for the on-orbit servicing, including active debris removal, in short, ADR, missions in Japan, which are provided by the guidelines on license to operate spacecraft to perform on-orbit servicing. So you can see the URL for this guideline. And the top left diagram shows the legal framework of space activities in Japan. The Space Basic Law provides basic principles of space activities in Japan, which include compliance with international law. Space Activities Act provides licensing schemes for the launching satellite and the control of satellite, which comply with the Outer Space Treaty Article 6 that require the state's authorization and continuing supervision for the activities carried on by non-governmental entities. The guidelines provide requirements for the applicant. The guidelines are not legally binding, but being incorporated into the, the framework under the law, they constitute part of legal framework. From the viewpoints of making the rules for the emerging space activities, Japan's legal framework for space activity has a flexible structure. Then the guideline provides the rules and the framework for the on-servicing, in short, OOS missions, as shown in the chart down left. Firstly, the OOS mission should be conducted based on a contract, and the client should have the title to the client object that receives the service. The registration of the client object according to the registration convention should be confirmed. If it is not registered yet, the servicer should confirm whether the registration will be done by the time of licensing the mission. If the registration is not expected, the servicer should provide the government with the information on the client object enough to assume which state is the potential launching state. The servicer should ensure that the client comply with the rules, if any, of the state which registered or licensed the client object, or notify the mission to that state. The state which issued the licenses for the client object may not be the state of registry or launching state. However, it may be responsible for the client object as a national space activity, according to the Outer Space Treaty. The guidelines cover such cases. The servicer should provide the designated Space Situational Awareness Organization, in short SSA organization, with operation plan and other information so that such organization can track the service of spacecraft and client object property. And to provide the government of Japan with the information on the status of operation or other necessary information so that the government can disclose information related to the mission to ensure transparency in a timely manner. The guidelines provide technical requirements to ensure safe and transparent mission. Technically, the applicant should know the features of client objects such as design, shape, centroid, spells, or other characteristics. The requirements are provided in each phase of on-orbit service mission, as shown in the diagram down right. The technical requirements employ the performance-based approach so that the mission can be reviewed flexibly in accordance with the development of technology or other changes of circumstances. Currently, as one of the technology demonstration programs for the ADR mission, the Astroscale, a private company headquartered in Japan, is carrying out the commercial removal of debris demonstration, in short, CRD2 program, as a partner of JAXA. In the first phase of this mission program, the Astroscale spacecraft will perform rendezvous and proximity operation to take the image of the other space object, which would be the abundant orbital stage of Japanese ground spacecraft. You can see the image of this mission applied. This program necessitates the rules for the OOS missions, including ADR. The government of Japan had to establish review standards to license the Astroscale to control its spacecraft by the time of its application. That was the major motivation to establish general rules for the OOS mission. The study team for this, the guidelines includes experts from government, space agency, industry, and academia. We hope the guidelines provide a model or a good reference for rulemaking and loan building for the emerging space activities. Thank you. That's all on my presentation. Back to Bidan Sensei.
Thank you so much, Kiyuchi, for explaining to us the systematic and progressive way that your country has dealt with the national governance of space activities in a structured way, and how important this issue plays. Thank you. We appreciate very much your contribution. If I may now move to our fourth speaker from the Philippines. I call on Chrisman Caballero, who is the Chief for Space International Cooperation at the Philippines Space Agency, PhilSA, which is in the Office of the President of the Philippines. Chrisman, it's a pleasure to meet you, and welcome. Thank you for making yourself available, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much to the organizers of the UN Portugal Symposium on Management and Sustainability of Outer Space Activities for the kind invitation to speak in this panel. Thank you, Professor Stephen, for the kind introduction. We can characterize outer space as a fragile environment where the steps taken by one actor might have a direct impact on humanity. Over the last decade, we have witnessed rapid development of sophisticated technologies, and that the broader application of space operations and the increased strategic value of space has resulted in growing need to enhance the safety of operations, the security of space environment and space assets, and the sustainability of outer space activities. In the context of the Philippines, as an emerging space-capable nation, we believe that we can contribute to the effort in ensuring the sustainability of outer space activities through the Space 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. We adhere to the Preamble 21 guidelines for long-term sustainability of outer space activities. We firmly believe that by doing so, we contribute to building best practices of outer space activities. This should be founded on norms and principles for peaceful uses of outer space, and that the rest would practically be founded on sound policies and clearly formulated international agreements. The government should actively work collectively with other stakeholders to include the private companies, academia, and civil society organizations to address the myriad of issues on a new global order in space, science, and technology applications. This will help to bring the benefits of space technology applications to a wide circle of stakeholders and to intensify and diversify national space programs. Our current government has outlined its development plan 2023 to 2028. This agenda prioritizes space exploration as key area of science, technology, and innovation, aiming to drive economic growth and societal transformation during the post-pandemic recovery. We are increasing our efforts towards ratifying liability convention, the registration convention, and we emphasize this as an important way to ratify as it demonstrates our commitment to global norms. We are working on national registration system for space objects. The online registration system will serve as the national database for space launch activities and registration of space objects. Through this national effort, you would be able to support the development of legal systems, norms, policies, and programs pertaining to outer space activities. We have employed a whole-of-government approach in addressing issues such as orbital debris. The Technical Working Group on Orbital Debris Protocols in the Philippines has made notable strides in identifying and resolving common grounds issues. Established to bolster international collaboration, the group focuses on improving responses to challenges posed by orbital debris. The Philippines recognizes its role in promoting the use of space data to support strategies to address intensifying adverse impact of climate change and the achievement of the SDGs. The National Copernicus Support Action Program for the Philippines, or the COFPHIL, has been launched. COFPHIL complements current national space data mobilization efforts by strengthening the utilization of Copernicus Earth observation data for disaster risk reduction management and climate action in the Philippines and our region. We facilitate access and distribution of Earth observation data through the Copernicus Mirror site to be established in the Philippines. In addition, we have signed various agreements with our partner countries and international organizations, such as with UNOOSA, with JAXA, with UAESA, with Space for Climate Observation, with PAEF, CONAE, European Commission, European Space Agency, InSpace UK, among others, that generally cover cooperation in capacity building activities, research and development, scientific missions, and space exploration, as well as promotion of space industry and industrial cooperation. Policy and regulatory frameworks at the national, regional, and international level are of paramount importance to provide the necessary basis for states, particularly developing countries, to meet sustainability of space activities. The existing outer space governance framework has become obsolete, and it has not kept up with the pace of commercialization and technological change in outer space activities. The time has come for us to define a new order of global space governance underpinned by collaboration and cooperation. This new international normative space framework encourages participation and continued dialogue and consultations. In this process, it is necessary for us to continue to strengthen the interlinkages between international space law and the conduct of space activities for sustainability of outer space activities. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chrisman, and thank you. I think your presentation is so important because for a number of reasons, but it shows us that, as you describe yourself, an emerging space-capable nation, one, has the obligations, but two, takes on that responsibility in an active and proactive way. This is really highlighting the issues of that, this is an issue that all countries, no matter what their space capabilities at present are, must take on. And thank you also for raising the issue of capacity building. Of course, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs is engaged a lot. Many countries, including Portugal, are. But that capacity building, I think, will also help as we move forward in addressing this issue. So thank you. It was an excellent presentation. I appreciate it. Our last presenter is from the UK, Ray. I'm not quite sure what time it is in the morning there, but I think it's reasonably humane. Ray Fielding, welcome. It's nice to see you again. Ray is the head of Space Sustainability at the UK Space Agency, which is a multifaceted role. Everything from developing sustainability standards at the national level to leading national active debris removal emissions and much else in between. Ray, thank you for sharing with us. I look forward to your presentation and the floor is yours.
Morning, thank you, Stephen, and good morning to everybody from a very grey and wet morning in the UK. As I said, my name is Ray Fielding. I'm Head of Sustainability, Space Sustainability at the UK Space Agency. I'd just like to take a minute to say why the UK thinks space sustainability is so important and what we're doing about it. Through no fault of our own, the UK has found itself one of the largest operators of satellites, active satellites in the world. With that comes responsibility and liability as well. We are very concerned that access to free and open use for the orbital regimes is a threat. We see both societal and economic benefits is crucial to maintain access to the orbital regimes. So we've actually restructured our entire space agency around some key priorities. And one of those key priorities is space sustainability. So we have a whole segment of the space agency dedicated purely to space sustainability. That's happened in the past year. Just about the anniversary of that is soon up and coming, and that's produced my role, my team. But it's not just about my team. We do a whole raft of activities across the space agency, and I would like to take the opportunity now to just take you through what they are. So let me just share my screen. It's loading. Hopefully you can see the slide there. There's quite a lot of activity that the UK is doing. We've invested well over £100 million into this area. The number keeps increasing, so it's hard to keep a tally, but basically you can break down our activity into three particular segments. Prevent the problem from happening in the first place. That's the best way to decrease space debris and get rid of it for the long term. Don't create any. So we're doing a raft of activity there, especially active in the international area to enable that to happen. Space doesn't just start and stop above the UK, and no matter what you might do nationally to try and control efforts, it's internationally where you'll be able to solve the problem. Protect the environment. So that's take action, as well as provide information to avoid potential incidents such as the conjunctions which we're seeing more and more frequently. And that stems from my earlier mention of liability as well. As a nation state, we are ultimately responsible for any damage, both in the orbital environment and anything which, where we decide it actually come back to the Earth. So we're taking steps there to develop technology to actually protect it and take action, and also promote. This area is gaining in importance and more attention on the international stage. We feel as a space agency, not only do we need to take an active role internationally, but not just in the space community, but step out of that space community and educate the general public as well. The policymakers, the politicians in the UK, and I suspect other places as well, strongly listen to the public. At the moment in the UK, especially, space debris and the issues of the orbital congestion is not widely known out of our little community. So we're hoping to take steps to try and break out of that, try and educate the general populace that this is important, and this is a crucial area. And interestingly, I went to a science education fair, and all of the school children really understood the problem, really got behind it. The comments from a particular vocal 10-year-old was, why would we ever drop rubbish in space? Why are we doing that? That's crazy. And it is. So they get it, but it's the generations in between, I think, we need to try and reach. So let me just walk you through here. It's quite a busy slide, but it just to show you the sort of things we are doing. So prevent the problem from taking place in the first place. We are working heavily in a regulation space, and we've just concluded a consultation on regulation. So we had the sort of standard regulations, 25-year orbital liabilities and such, and steps needed to show that you are a responsible space operator to gain license and UK accreditation. So we've consulted with industry and academia and wider as well, much wider, about what our future regulation regime should look like. That is concluding now, and the output should be ready in a few months, and they'll take into consideration all sorts of things, such as the FAA moving down to 5 years for end of life and natural deorbiting. So that's very interesting for us. And use cases such as fining for operators. There's a carrot and a stick approach we're looking at. Fines are one thing. Service denial of areas is another, all designed to either encourage or enforce responsible use of space. I mean, when you think you might have a large constellation operator, you might have a fine regime of 100, 200,000 pounds or such, just an example, but you know, that's not even probably one day of profit to some of these operators. So we have to take all of these things into consideration. Another thing we're doing is developing space sustainability standards through our ESSI initiative, Earth and Space Sustainability Initiative. So that's working with industry to look at a series of standards from ground sustainability to launch to operation in space and dark and quiet skies. Stephen, I noted you said about the indigenous peoples of Australia and the importance there. That's something we're trying to take into account as well, not just for the UK, but around the world. How do we become a truly international and responsible operator to take everyone's needs into account? The first of those standards should be published in around May. Focusing on launch and overarching, and then there'll be a series of other standards coming through. That'll be a British standard, but we hope to translate those into ISO. International collaboration, we're working across the normal fora, such as COPUOS, IADC, and providing study work into the IADC especially, and very active in promoting and developing further long-term sustainability guidelines. And organisations such as the Secure World Foundation, a Summit for Sustainability, which I believe is in Japan this year, will be there as well. Other initiatives on that include a non-government and non-policy initiative, very interesting thing which has come around, led by the King. So it's called the Ashton Carter. And this is specifically designed to try and embed sustainable policy into private companies. So it's non-government and non-boundaried, but that is aimed at ensuring that private companies can have a badge of approval almost to say that they are responsible and safe operators for sustainability in space, not just in the near orbits, but longer term as well. I mean, it's quite a wide-ranging, encompassing documents. The idea behind that is to not just use it as a way to promote space sustainability, but also use it for companies to say, right, we're a good operator. If you want to invest in ESG especially, and invest in a company which you know is a responsible operator, this is a mark of approval which says this company is a safe bet. We're developing a range of technologies, both with the European Space Agency and ourselves as well. So the European Space Agency, we're heavily involved in the space safety program, investing in a number of missions such as Clear Space 1, ELSA-M. Those are designed for specific satellite removals, but there's a raft of other activity going on in that program, including Vigil Space Weather mission, quite a large and important mission, and a whole host of activities I can't possibly cover in the time available. The stuff that we're doing nationally focuses on two things. So active debris removal mission. So we are planning to rendezvous and capture 2 UK registered defunct satellites in 2026. They're non-cooperative and non-responsive, so quite difficult targets. So we hope to do that twice to prove the repeatability, and also part of the servicer in orbit for potential refueling mission as well. And we're conducting some refueling mission studies to see the possibilities and viability of that. We are crashing through that program at a rate of knots. We've just concluded the Phase B initial preliminary design work with 2 consortiums, one led by Astroscale and one led by ClearSpace. We're doing a range of other studies as well, everything from life cycle assessments to things like carrying capacity. How many satellites are too many satellites? I felt that no one knows the answer to that question. Is it even a problem, or is it a serious problem? We don't really know. We've all seen the projected numbers of satellites, everything from 30,000 to 100,000 by 2030. And we're very conscious that we have no agreed space traffic management guidelines, how much of the, especially in lower Earth orbit, how much carrying capacity actually is there. Something we are due to launch in the next day or two is atmospheric ablation studies, and we're working hand in glove with the European Space Agency and others. Just spoke to the UN about this as well, because we want it to be a truly international piece of work, of which the UK just provides a jigsaw puzzle, but it has to be international. Atmospheric ablation, is dropping satellites into the upper atmosphere a good idea, a bad idea? What will the effects be? Again, the fact that no one knows the answers to this question, and there's a potential there to, we could be in the same situation we were in the 1950s and 60s and 70s with CFCs. So the current model to remove satellites is deorbit them. And when you think in 2030, it could be thousands of satellites coming down from that period. If they produce any harm to the Earth environment, we need to take action now to make sure we don't create a business model which actually harms our own environment. So we're doing that. I'll just finish on the space surveillance and tracking. We provide a free data service to all UK registered operators, 24/7, 365 days of the year. We are monitoring with our own assets and other assets as well, everything that's going on in the skies, and we produce many conjunction warnings, and we're looking at guidance as well, so space traffic guidance, which could be published, looking into the liabilities of that. We are standing something up called the National Space Operations Centre, which will be a joint effort between UK MOD and our civilian side to collect that data, to grow the network and to promulgate that data outwards. From the 1st of April, there should be more information on that. But I get the conjunction reports across my desk, and I'm getting conjunction reports almost every day now. So it's certainly an area we need to invest in and produce more data in. That's a very quick whistle-stop tour of what we're doing. If I had another hour, I'd probably still be going. But thank you for your attention, and I'll hand the floor back over to Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you so much. What an incredibly comprehensive 6-minute presentation that was. Thank you. And obviously there's a lot going on. I wanted to thank you also for raising the important point about educating, not only those that, not only preaching to the converted, if you like, but that importance of educating the wider public, not only about the wonder of space and the benefits of space, but the risks associated with unsustainable practices. I think that's an incredibly important issue. Education of the general public more effectively, I think, is something that we should really focus on. I think we have about 10 minutes left. There are a couple of questions I wanted to ask the panelists, one from the audience, and then I'll ask them for a final reflection. So just looking at a question from the audience, and I realise this is something that perhaps is difficult for you to comment on, but I'll throw it out there. And this comes from someone from civil society. As you know, in civil society, there are a number of NGOs that have said, as important as the 17 SDGs are, we need an 18th SDG, space for all, if you like, because space is the driver without which the 17 SDGs would come under severe threat. I realise you've all got your space agency hats on, but if you were to take that off just for one moment, is there merit in looking at perhaps expanding the SDGs? It's not going to happen, we understand that, but is there merit in saying perhaps the SDGs is too planet-focused, Earth planet-focused, and maybe if we were to rewrite this, there should be a 18th SDG, space for all? Difficult question. I hope someone would like to address it. So the floor is open to anyone who'd like to respond.
If I could jump in.
Yes, sure, Ray.
Short answer, yes. I was heavily involved in the first 17, or the only 17, and had a large space program designed to deliver results for those 17. At the time, this is going back like 8-9 years ago almost, I was unaware, even working with the space agency, that there could be an issue in the orbital regime. So I think with that context, if we know what we know now, perhaps, or it was widely known back then, the information now, the path of where we might be going, I feel that the 18th would have been embedded in almost right from the start. So yeah, that would be my comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Would anyone else like to comment on that or on Ray's reflections? Well, let me pose another question. We've heard, oh yes, Anil, no. We've heard today the different national and indeed regional approaches to sustainability, and we heard from Aarti how they're interconnected, of course, with the international efforts. But how do we bring all this together? My comments right at the beginning were we all understand the problem, we all understand the issues, we all understand the importance, but for reasons that make perfect sense, different countries are perhaps going down slightly different pathways about how they address it to meet their own circumstances. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but Ray's talking about standards being created. How do we, if you like, support the different pathways and maybe bring them back to some commonality, at least at a high level? Again, a difficult question, but I throw the floor open to anyone who'd like to respond.
Okay,
yes,
I will try. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. For your question, and that's very important. Today, I think I could really confirm the importance of the multi-sector and the multi-stakeholder discussion for the rulemaking or non-building or space activities. And also, I reconfirmed the importance of international or regional discussion to harmonize the pathway of the pathway that each state pursue. Thank you, Alex. You mentioned about NSLI initiative and APR South have been passed this year. I think that such a venue is good for for the international or regional discussion. And also for the multi-sector and the multi-stakeholder discussion. That's my answer. We can utilize the existing platform for harmonization of the rules and norms for space activity.
Thank you, Cage.
Answer to your question.
That's very helpful, and thank you for bringing us back to those efforts that are being made at that regional level to bring it together. Alex, you had your flag up. Did you want to say something? And then I'll move to Anil. Yeah.
Thank you. I think for us, we look for consistency. So we are looking at the various pathways, for example, in relation to lunar activities, one, of course, being the working group that you're working in, Stephen. And we're really looking across various forums and instruments and looking for themes, what's consistent, what's common ground, and how can we be constructive in the various forums and discussions that we're involved in. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And consistency is And looking at the forum, obviously we all understand COPOS, but there are other fora as well that this message, should be spread as broadly as possible. Thank you. Anil, you have your flag up. Would you like to contribute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to comment on the last point. Yeah, we have many international fora, including UNOOSA, UN COPOS, IADC, ISO, IAF, IAA, many international fora where we discuss sustainability issues and regional and international progresses and what is happening. Also, we have LTS guidelines, long-term sustainability guidelines. One of the areas where we have a common ground consistently across the regional players, that is what discussed earlier also elsewhere. Basically on the standards, formats, data sharing. This was discussed many times, and about a common standard, common format, and also contact information of the various operational operators and owners. These are all necessary, important, very important. And it is essential to have a nation's space safety and sustainability programs and goals to achieve space for all if we are looking for sustainable space for all. For that, in fact, international collaboration is a must. It should be under the umbrella of international bodies where we have to discuss what are the best practices. We know legally binding instruments are difficult. So best practices are the best way how to tackle the issues of growing space object population, not only debris population, because operational objects also now giving, in fact, they are giving more complexities than the debris objects. That is my first point. Second point regarding the 18 SDGs, what we discussed, question was there earlier. Space economy as the 18 SDG, what we talk about. As we know that space economy is an essential part. We know that security, in fact, our IAF, International Astronautical Federation, where I am a vice president for that, we have an SIS program, security, sustainability, investment and security. Basically, the space economy, investment in the space and the returns from the space really related to the secure space and the sustainable space. So whatever we are talking about the sustainability development goals from 17 to 18 SDG when it comes, it is very important that space economy has to be taken into consideration. And for that, we require sustainability and secure space. Thank you.
Thank you for Anil for sharing your reflections and also talking about the importance of the space economy. Kuzman, please share. Would you like to share your reflection on this?
All right, thank you very much, Stephen. You opened this panel by mentioning that there are different perspectives or outlook among countries in terms of space sustainability and how they foresee that in terms of being part of the space ecosystem. Right. But as we want to enlarge it or to strengthen in the multilateral level or upgrade that to that level, we have to be more clear in terms of conceptualization. The conceptualization and how we translate this to real policy, tangible ones, especially for developing countries in the global south, and that they would be part of the discussions in the debate. And convergence of the interest, where we played all actors involving industries, academia, and of course, and build a stronger ecosystem. It's fluid out there. I mean, you have to build on certain resources and flexibility, but you need to have also the whole of government approach. As soon as you have strengthened the national perspective, then you can work closely in the regional and the multilateral level. Then I think we can be more successful in that upfront.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree with you more. And it's events like this that help in that idea of socializing, that idea of there are different perspectives, so let us try to find how it's best conceptualized to me. Well, thank you. I know we're very short of time, but what I wanted to do before handing back to Hugo is just go around the table, ask everybody for a final reflection. Maybe to say, you know, if you can take off your space agency hat and say, what should we be doing more of? What should we be focusing on if there was one thing, if you had a magic wand? But I'd just be interested in a 1-minute final reflection from all of you before I hand it back to our host. So I'll go in reverse order from before. So Ray, would you like to kick off? 1-minute reflection.
Sure. For me, the importance, what people need to realise is time. This is happening before our very eyes. Many thousands of satellites per year almost are being launched or forecast. So we need to act as well as talk, and cooperation. That's the key. This is an international problem. Working with the Australian Space Agency and others to do things like align regulations, so a UK satellite could potentially rendezvous and deorbit an Australian satellite and vice versa. All of these are so important and key to actually acting in space. So we need to do more, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm glad you said that, because it means space lawyers continue to have a job for life, which I'm very happy of. Thank you. Kritsman, a last reflection from you?
All right, thank you very much. So in order to accelerate this, we need to increase and deepen our international cooperation in space. And that goes hand in hand by strengthening the multilateral and regional platforms for an inclusive and participatory environment to flourish, as we need to define the new global order in space governance.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very important words. Very much appreciated. Koichi, thank you. Any last minute reflections from your side?
Yes. Firstly, I would like to thank Fernando Sensei and other distinguished speakers for sharing your great insights and perspectives. I could confirm that discussion is very important for the remaking and non-building for space activities, including sustainable space activities. So, I'm looking forward to further discussion with you in many occasions. Thank you. That's my conclusion.
Yeah. Thank you, Koichi. And obviously, as you know, this particular event is a forerunner of an event, an in-person conference in Portugal in May. So there will be many ongoing discussions. Thank you so much. Anil, can I hear any last minute reflections from you?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, it is necessary to ensure long-term sustainability of outer space activities. Adopting a holistic approach by combining advanced technologies, international collaboration and cooperation, and public awareness efforts. In fact, this symposium like this initiative, this type of symposiums will give necessary framework or platform for public awareness. So our aim is to mitigate the risks associated with space debris, operational space objects, and sustainable space operations, and it should pave the way for a safer and more sustainable space environment for the continued exploration of the outer space, and which will be useful for our future generations. Thank you for organizing such a wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, and wonderful words, I think, and that we will all consider. Alex, you have the last word as the panelist. A final reflection from you. What's the thing that we really need to do most?
I think in policy and law, to remember the technical and to look for solutions which are creative and collaborative and also can do. Thanks.
Thank you. Wise words, can do. It's absolutely the case. Well, look, firstly, before I hand back to our hosts, let me personally thank all of you, Ray, Anil, Kritsman, Koichi, and Alex. Thank you so much. Thank you also to our rapporteur for being there and taking notes. But it's been a great discussion. Online presentations and online seminars are always difficult, but I think we covered a lot of ground in a short space of time. Thank you all so much for your insights. I think it adds to the richness of this discussion. Let me also again thank UNOOSA, but in particular the Government of Portugal, for hosting this event, for inviting such a wonderful panel, for engaging with us all on this incredibly important topic, for your leadership on it. And as we heard from Kritsman and Koichi and others, this is just part of an ongoing discussion, but an important part. And I think there were many issues raised today that bear important reflection for all of us. So let me now pass it on with sincere thanks back to our hosts, Hugo and Carolina, perhaps to close it up. But thank you again. It's been what I think a very stimulating discussion. Over to you, Carolina.
Thank you so much, Professor Freeland, for your brilliant guidance of the session and your so kind words towards us and for giving us this road to go to. And thank you so much to you, dear speakers, for excellently sharing your views, experiences, and concerns on the sustainability of outer space. I think this was a wonderful session and we live enriched by your reflections and this exchange. Thank you very much. And this afternoon, we will continue these interactions with Thomas Weissenberg from the European Space Agency, Ian Grosner from the Brazil Space Agency, Rodolfo Munhoz from the European Commission, Asana Sangoni from the South Africa Space Agency, and Emmanuel Bourdunkel from FDF's France, all moderated by Professor Kayuf Skrogel, President of the International Institute of Space Law. So I'll see you all back at 200 UTC sharp for another great session of regional and national approaches on space sustainability of our Policy Symposium. Thank you so much to all, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.